Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Very Cold Lasagna, your filthy casual place for all the filthy casual takes on the world of sports. I am DylanLasagna and welcome back to another episode of this icy yet spicy podcast, episode number 122, as we march down deeper into the NFL Playoffs 2022 edition. Yeah, pal, it's the Divisional Playoffs, which are said and done this past weekend. And we are here to discuss it. We are here to review it. We are here to talk everything about it that went down this past weekend. And, well, let's just get all the stuff. Let's just get my thoughts about it out of the way. My quick thoughts about it. It was boring. Most of it was pretty boring, to say the least. I guess because, well, as I said in the preview of the divisional playoffs, it was either going to be predictable or there was going to be some shockers. In the end, it ended up being pretty predictable for the most part. So that being said, before we get deep into our episode for today, a little bit of housekeeping for this episode. As you know, as I talked about all throughout the month of January, this week is going to be a pretty busy week. As I speak in this episode, I'm probably out and about working, doing some stuff in real life at probably one of my random ass jobs. But hey, you're probably hearing me right now doing this podcast. So I appreciate you taking the time out of your day listening to me. So make sure you share it with your friends, where it's on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor FM. Listen to Very Cold Lasagna wherever you get it. And make sure you leave a like, comment, and rate and review it on your podcast platforms. So as I go through this week of hell throughout this whole week, preparing for not just my various real life shenanigans, obviously this week is going to be a big week. Now that one of the certain teams has made the conference championship weekend. I'm not going to say which one yet, but there's going to be 2 episodes, just 2. I'll explain why in just a bit, covering both conference championship games. I'll explain more about that much later in the episode. And then obviously we have the Royal Rumble this weekend. By the way, Raw's 30th anniversary. I mean, it was okay for what it was. Maybe I have to go back and watch more of the segments. But I will say, the Bloodline is literally one of the best stories WWE has told in a long ass time. Like, that is like the personification of how stories need to be told. They need to emphasize storylines again, like clearly explicit storylines. Like, so good. So anyway, I don't want to ramble on too much. Royal Rumble review at some point, hopefully in between the conference championship weekend. And man, it's going to be insane. It's going to be an insane weekend of content coming you all here on Very Cold Lasagna. So stay tuned. Stay tuned for that icy yet spicy content here coming up on Very Cold Lasagna, the podcast. So anyway, let's talk about this divisional slate that happened this past weekend. Like I said, it was either going to be predictable or a little bit of some shockers could happen. It's headed towards the event of shocker initially with the first game, that being the top seed Kansas City Chiefs hosting the 4-seeded all elite Jacksonville Jaguars. Unfortunately, it didn't turn out that way initially because the Chiefs, well rested, well prepared. They were at their usual with Patrick Mahomes easily slicing up the Jaguars' pass defense and making their own ordinary receivers more than just that. And Travis Kelce, even though he was getting double the coverage, getting more open somehow, and then they took an early lead. Obviously, though, once the Jaguars tied the game with Trevor Lawrence, the biggest story of the game came very late in the first quarter. Patrick Mahomes had his right ankle rolled up from underneath by some Jacksonville defenders, and ended up suffering a high ankle sprain. He was taken out of the game for the rest of the first half. But backup Chad Henne filled in quite nicely for the Chiefs offense. They were still smooth sailing with him under center. They would take a 17-7 lead up until the very mere seconds of the first half. Jaguars would cut it to 7 with a field goal, but they were the big takeaway was Chad Henne, just like he did in the divisional playoffs 2 years ago against the Skid Marks. He was keeping the Chiefs at bay, mainly with Kelsey and running back Isaiah Pacheco assisting him out. So when we get to the second half, the big story obviously was Mahomes going to return at some point, or was Chad Henne we're going to have to ride it out? Mahomes ended up did returning to start the second half, but it was clear that he was going to be severely limited in terms of mobility. And in high pressure situations, he couldn't escape the pocket. And he was just going to have to throw the ball away or like get rid of the ball very quickly. But still, somehow he still was able to make a couple plays here and there. Meanwhile, for the Jaguars, unfortunately, Doug Peterson's play calling was kind of meh. It was very all elite in not a good way. Trevor Lawrence was under duress, making a lot of mistakes for the most part, and too many missed opportunities, too many drop back passes for him. And then finally in the fourth quarter, they started to get going. They finally got a run to attack the Chiefs defense with some chunk plays. And then sooner or later, once they got to the goal line, Travis Etienne runs it in. They cut the lead to 20-17. And then finally, you have a game. There's an opportunity for the Jaguars to take the lead and potentially come up with an upset. But nope. Mahomes immediately responds with another drive, another slicing of the all-elite Jaguars defense. And sooner or later, you know it, despite with no mobility in his legs, the Chiefs are once again up by 10 points. And then the mistakes continue to creep up again for the Jaguars, who have gone full elite, just like Kenny Omega and the Cuck Suck. Jamal Agnew, despite the Jaguars creeping up at the red zone, they had an opportunity to cut it back down to single digits. Jamal Agnew made a very killer mistake, perhaps the biggest killer that would shut down the Jaguars one of two times. He fumbled at the goal line. A catch and fumble. Like, you can't do that. Initially, when I was watching this game, like taking a glimpse at it, I thought it was going to be like one of those situations where, he caught the ball, but it didn't complete the process of the catch. But damn, that's just unfortunate. Like, you can't have that happening, my guy. And then the Jaguars did get the ball back. They got a stop. But then Trevor Lawrence, of course, throws a back-breaking interception under pressure and essentially ends the team's playoff hopes. And the chance to upset the Chiefs on the road. And then, they tack on a field goal. They try for an onside kick, but it just wasn't enough. They failed the onside kick, and the Chiefs are going to host their 5th straight AFC title game. But they had to wait and see if it was going to be in Arrowhead or at a neutral site in Atlanta the next day. So that was kind of a game that was the Chiefs managed to hold on despite the Mahomes injury, but more on that in just a bit. Let's talk about the Jaguars for a second here, because the Jaguars, I feel like they could have had it. They could have had this game against Kansas City. Sure, they made a lot of mistakes in this game, but I feel like it was more of the missed opportunities by their offense. Plenty of opportunities for their head coach Doug Peterson to dial up some good plays for his offense, especially in the first half when Mahomes was out of the lineup and the secondary was very subpar. But there was just a lot of dropbacks, not enough play action where Lawrence really thrives. Not letting Travis Etienne dice up the run defense of Kansas City. Like I feel like Doug Peterson didn't really attack Kansas City's weaknesses, especially with Mahomes down and out. So, Yeah, and also the fact that Lawrence and his teammates made some killer mistakes late in the game, and had they not made them, they would have made a serious push at making a very late upset over the Chiefs. Now, would you say the same about their defense? I don't know, but it could have changed the tide of the game. So hopefully they use this game as learning fuel for next season, or I don't know, maybe they go back to being the all elite, and not in a good way, Jaguars. Meanwhile, for the Chiefs, obviously the big concern for Kansas City is how healthy Patrick Mahomes is going to be with this ankle sprain going to the AFC title game. But my concern is actually their defense, their special teams, because there were a lot of lapses in that game that kept Jacksonville in it, especially the special teams where they gave Jacksonville really good field position to start their offensive drives. Whoever that opponent may be, when they play in the title game, and that special teams allows the opposing kickoff return or punt return unit to get some really good field position, that team, their opponent is gonna like strike. They're gonna get into scoring position and feast on it. So that defense, that special teams really has to tighten up in the title game, because that was a concerning performance. So the Chiefs went on to hold on 27-20 against the all elite Jacksonville Jaguars. Hey, I mean, give the Jaguars a little bit of credit. Yes, I roasted them for being all elite, sponsored by AEW. But hey, I think they do have a little bit of a bright future ahead of them, just as long as they build on it in the offseason and the right way. So the nightcapper was the top seed Philadelphia Eagles taking on the 6th seeded New York Giants. And I guess I could say that going into this game, I thought it was going to be a close one. The Eagles, we didn't know how healthy they were going to be despite, having the bye week, just how healthy Jalen Hurts was going to be, how guys like Lane Johnson was also going to be. And meanwhile, for the Giants, they were coming off a big win where they just thrashed the Vikings defense despite how close that game was. But obviously, they're going to a different environment against a different team, against the Eagles, their division rival. So we didn't know how that game was going to go. Well, turns out that this game was over by the halftime. I guess you could also say this game was over by the first quarter, because Jalen Hurts and that Eagles offense and overall that whole team pretty much ended the game right then and there at halftime. Because Jalen Hurts and that offense scored on 4 of their 5 offensive possessions at will. I guess it did wonders that the offensive line back at full strength. Lane Johnson showed no signs of like being not being unhealthy, back at 100%. Because the offensive line allowed the running game of Miles Sanders, Kenneth Gainwell, and Jalen Hurts to gash the non-existent Giants defensive front. Meanwhile, for the Giants, there was just absolutely no running room for neither Saquon Barkley nor Daniel Jones, and thus made the Giants offense very one-dimensional. There was no receiving game from them, nothing from Darius Lane, nothing from their tight ends. So yeah, it was just a very one-dimensional offense, and the Giants barely took advantage of the fact of Philadelphia's weak run defense. So I guess it also was because that Philadelphia was really stacking the box on the Giants' kind of actually pretty weak offensive line. So yeah, it was a pretty bad game. It was just a bad game. And well, I guess something for the Giants to build on, whatever that may be, as the Eagles beat the Giants easily 38-7 to advance to the NFC Championship game. So I guess the only takeaway for the Giants this offseason is, well, should they really give Daniel Jones that contract? Should they really give Daniel Jones that big fat contract that everyone's been talking about? Well, I don't know. Maybe I think they should really think about it. they should really think about giving him that contract, especially considering coming off this game. Maybe they do give him another contract, but maybe not as long as people think. Maybe not as long, not like a big fat 5 year, whatever, $100 or $70 million contract. Not one of those big fat contracts. Maybe one of those contracts that's like 2 year, however, like somewhere 20 million. Because I feel like he should be given, at least try to give him like another chance, even though he's had plenty of chances. Maybe if you give him a supporting cast around him, like build around him, then maybe you could see how well he can do, or maybe not so well. So, and then if he doesn't do well with a better supporting cast, then you can make a move at another quarterback. But in my opinion, I'm not really sold on the idea of Daniel Jones getting another big contract, let alone another contract from the Giants. Maybe Saquon Barkley? I don't know. But either way, I don't know if the Giants, it's in their best interest to get another contract. Meanwhile, for the Eagles, obviously, this is a solid tune-up. Maybe it's obviously an easy tune-up for them. What will probably be a tough yet big NFC title game. Obviously, the Giants were just the appetizer. Jalen Hurts showed no signs of his shoulder injury. He also showed no signs of rust from the bye week. He returned to form with this quick release and mobility. So his dual threat ability at the quarterback position and the rushing attack of Miles Sanders and Kenneth Gainwell were the stars of the game because, well, the Giants, they kind of did a decent job covering A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith after the big throw to Devontae Smith in like the first quarter. I don't know why they didn't go for more deep downfield shots to A.J. Brown and Devontae. I'm not sure. Defensively, obviously, they made Saquon and Daniel Jones' playmaking expendable with their high pressure. So overall, this is a tune-up for the Eagles. They had a really solid tune-up performance. Now, obviously, the big test is going to be that NFC Championship game against whoever they will face. Because whoever they will face is going to be much tougher again than whatever the Giants were. Because that team that they will face is also going to be no joke there and may be just as balanced as they are. Well, we're about to find out as we talk about the Sunday slate of these games. On the AFC side, in a snowy Buffalo, in a snowy New York, the three-seeded Cincinnati Bengals visited the two-seeded Buffalo Bills. A rematch of a game that never happened in Week 17 down in Cincinnati because, well, the Damar Hamlin situation happened. And by the way, it is very awesome to see that Damar Hamlin was in attendance for that game in Buffalo, supporting his teammates with the crowd. That was awesome to see, by the way. So, man, what a game by Cincinnati in this game. Missing half of their starting offensive line, and they just marched down the field with ease on their first two drives, easily finding, with Joe Burrow, finding his guys, connecting wide open to Jamar Chase and Hayden Hurst, and they took an early 14-0 advantage. They were just playing and toying with the Bills' defense, a depleted Bills' defense. Meanwhile, Josh Allen, sure, he shook off some of the early struggles, cut it down to 14-7, but again, his defense that was so depleted without Von Miller, without three of their starting safeties. They were already missing Micah Hyde. They are now also missing Jordan Poyer in that game, who exited the game. They were down to their fourth string starting safety. They were struggling big time to get Cincinnati's offense off the field. And by the time you know it, They were down 17-10 at halftime. But man, look, it seemed like things were getting worse for the Buffalo Bills because while the Bengals were still able to drive down the field with consistency, Josh Allen he unraveled. He absolutely unraveled. I feel like this second half for the Buffalo Bills was just a season, like the whole story of their season. It really was. A defense that without any pressure, without able to generate any pressure on the quarterback, or like not being able to do anything on defense, everything falls back on Josh Allen. He tried to do too much, especially without a running game. He tried to do too much with the power runs, and with the pressure in his face in the pass rush, he started playing scared against Cincinnati's front seven, and it started affecting his decision making throughout the second half. As his team started staring down a 27-10 hole in the fourth quarter. And unfortunately, a late comeback was not to be for the Bills. And eventually, the Cincinnati Bengals pulled away after getting a late interception on Josh Allen. One last gasp failed miserably. And Cincinnati smashed the Bills in the snow 27-10. And we got ourselves a second consecutive rematch between the Bengals and the Chiefs in the AFC title game down in Arrowhead. And you know what the Bengals say? They say, fuck your neutral site game. Fuck your coin flip. We're going to the AFC title game, and we're going to assure we will get that opportunity to go back to the Super Bowl. So Cincinnati said, you know what? They're gonna try to plot against us. Well, we're going to say, fuck that narrative. Man, this Cincinnati team is really something, man. They really like to prove the naysayers wrong. And that they definitely did with the latest demolition of the Bills. They bounced back big time from that tight-ass game against the Ravens with a rousing blowout against a supposedly game Bills team. Yes, I say supposedly because, yeah, they have Josh Allen. They have these playmakers as Stephon Diggs, Dawson Knox. But they didn't see any of that on Sunday. So for Cincinnati, they absolutely were the spoiler to the NFL, the Bills, and the Chiefs' plans. They played a complete game on all fronts. Joe Burrow and the offense looked pretty damn good. And they did all that they wanted against a non-existent and injury-depleted Bills teams that couldn't pressure him. They couldn't generate a turnover on him. They couldn't cover Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, nobody. Cincinnati's defense was able to do anything at will and easily against Josh Allen. Meanwhile, for the Bills and Josh Allen, I feel like they have to reevaluate in the offseason because when they lost to Kansas City in the divisional last year, the reason why they lost is, well, just like how they lost this year against Cincinnati. They couldn't pressure Patrick Mahomes. They couldn't get any key stops on third down. And what they did to solve that was getting Von Miller from in free agency when he left the Rams, coming off a Super Bowl. And the game, Von Miller, everyone thought that was supposed to be the key to put the Bills back in the AFC title game and past the Chiefs to get back to the Super Bowl. But at least until week 12, it seemed that way. And then he tore his ACL. And then the Bills were right back where they were. And then prior to that, they ended up getting those injuries to Micah Hyde. And then in the divisional game, it just seemed to come to a head. The injuries to safety Dean Marlowe, to Jordan Poyer, and then corner Tre'Davious White also got hurt. It just piled and piled on. And the Bills eventually succumbed to injury mania. And then the offensive line also faced a crap ton of heat for Cincinnati's pass rushing group, and they just left Josh Allen to scrambling all game long. And the offensive line was actually pretty bad all season long. So this divisional game for the Bills was kind of like an anticlimax. It was pretty anticlimactic because it was a season where the Bills, they had these expectations of going back to the AFC title game, just getting past the divisional, then getting to the AFC title game, hopefully outlasting whether it's the Chiefs, Cincinnati, or whatever team they got there, and got back to the Super Bowl for the first time in a long time. But injuries and then the any turnovers Josh Allen had, it led to an absolute disappointment of a season for the Buffalo Bills. And I think they really got to reevaluate what to do this offseason. Then we had the nightcap for the divisional playoffs that would decide who would face the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFC Championship game. And that was, of course, my San Francisco 49ers, the number 2 seed, taking on the 5 seed Dallas Cowboys. And, man, this game was the biggest test for Brock Purdy, and obviously a big test for Dak Prescott, too. But forget those narratives, because this game was a battle of the defenses. And battle of the defenses made for a major stress test for everybody watching this game. I will say, Brock Purdy didn't turn the ball over in this game, but because he was facing so much pressure in his face, thanks to the Cowboys' defensive front and the 49ers' offensive line not being able to protect him because heaven knows why, he was at least able to get a couple of plays in when he was able to get some protection, but for the most part, the lack of protection on the offensive line led to a lot of quick and mostly ineffective plays for a good part of the game. Excuse me. Oh man, I must have ate something that's really weird. So anyway, yeah, the offense was really conservative for the most part of the game up until the third quarter, where Purdy finally got some protection to get some key passes into George Kittle, who made a juggling catch to spark the offense and the running game for Christian McCaffrey that would pick up from there on out. Dallas just got tired from that point onward. Speaking of the Cowboys, Dak Prescott, on the other hand, wasn't able to take advantage of the 49ers' porous downfield defense due to the Niners' own front seven constantly closing in on him, just like the Cowboys' front seven was closing in on Brock Purdy. So, yeah, Dak was pretty much faltering worse than Purdy was, committing 2 turnovers, just throwing it overhead his receivers. Yeah, he was kind of like rumbling under the pressure. So there was that 50-50 Dak Prescott that I was mentioning countless times in not just the preview for the divisional, but in my preview for the 49ers specific video. Anyway, that aforementioned turn of the game I just talked about, Christian McCaffrey punched it in the red zone for a touchdown. They got the 16-9 edge. But man, they could have ended the game like much later after the 2-minute warning, after a long drive. Backup Elijah Mitchell, he didn't slide in bounds after he got a first down. Actually a big mental error there. And then they had to punt, and then that gave the Cowboys one last chance to try and get something out of it to tie a game, force overtime. It was 19-12. And then on their last stand, well, the Cowboys just pretty much showed why they Cowboys. They always show why they always let you down. Well, the reason why they let you down yet again was because, well, on 2 plays. Dalton Schultz could have converted a key first down, but then he realized he lifted his foot, one of his feet, and he didn't keep his feet in bounds. And then on their very last play, they tried to do a trick play. They tried to do a Hail Mary or whatever that lateral was. But then Dak Prescott instead checked it down to Noah Brown or whoever was in the area. And then Jimmy Ward immediately tackled that receiver. And then that's how the Niners won. They won a grit and grind battle 19-12, and well, they're going on to their second straight NFC Championship game after coming up short last year to the LA Rams. So this was stressful. This was a nerve-wracking. This was something. This was what did I say though? This is going to be the most interesting game of the divisional playoff weekend, and it definitely was. It definitely was, even if it was a stressful one. Considering the games that we got prior to this game, this is at least a good capper. So for the Cowboys, I honestly don't know what to say. They always find a way to let you down, and most certainly Dak Prescott has once again let them down because of his very inconsistent play. Like I said, 1 week he will do good, but then when he faces a really good team, like the 49ers or like the Eagles, he just finds a way to let you down. He finds a way to crumble under the pressure when it gets tight. And he once again did it. Made two turnovers. Sure, they weren't costly at the time, but when they asked him to, stretch the field or make some key conversions, he didn't. So, I mean, it wasn't entirely Dak's fault either, but he was a good chunk of the reason why the Cowboys didn't win. They didn't find a way to upset the 49ers on Sunday. And the pass rush, the defense eventually got tired out, but Dak Prescott once again didn't do enough to find a way to upset my 49ers on Sunday. Speaking of my 49ers, man, that game was crazy. It was a little crazy and a little nerve-wracking because, well, of the way that entire offense played. It was like they felt like they were holding back some. And yeah, they played their toughest defense, but it's like there was a lot of opportunities where Kyle Shanahan could have gotten a lot more points than he needed, and they could have. But I feel like they were holding back some. Perhaps maybe they didn't want to reveal too much, or they didn't want to exert too much, and reveal too many things when and if they could have played the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, obviously they will now, but I feel like Kyle Shanahan didn't put in his total A+ effort. He put in like a B effort, but they did just enough against the Cowboys. But the defense, though, they did a A+ effort though, getting to Prescott, creating those turnovers, doing good in coverage aside from a couple of downfield throws and catches. But the defense really stepped up to the plate in a battle of the defenses. But I will say this, the Niners are going to have to be at their absolute best. They're going to have to be the absolute best, not just defensively, but offensively. That starts with Kyle Shanahan, because against a Philadelphia offense that can not only stop you defensively, but can kill you on offense. So the Niners, especially Kyle Shanahan, especially with the rookie quarterback in Brock Purdy, they're going to have to bring their A game. They're going to have to be at their very best to be the only one. Dun, 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 dun. So they're going to have to be all out Sunday against the Philadelphia Eagles. So, yeah, the Niners hold on to beat the Cowboys 19-12 to advance to the NFC Championship game. And yeah, we got our Final Four. We have our Final Four. The NFC Championship game, the 49ers taking on the Eagles, and a rematch of last year's AFC Championship game, the Cincinnati Bengals and the Kansas City Chiefs. This is actually a good Final Four, unless if it turns into a total blowout. But I thought the divisional weekend was going to be good, but it ended up being disappointing. Let's hope that Conference Championship weekend brings out a really good weekend, leading up to, obviously, the Super Bowl. And it'll be even sweeter if, well, my Niners somehow upset the Eagles. So, let me know your thoughts about divisional weekend whether it's in the comments or on social media at Very Cold Lasagna. I like to know your thoughts or any criticism, anything pertains to this episode. So anyway, this is DylanLasagna, a Very Cold Lasagna, and keep that lasagna very cold in the fridge with your takes on the world of sports. Thank you for tuning into this episode number 122. And on the next episode, well, you'll just have to find out. It could be the conference championships. It could be the Royal Rumble. You'll just have to tune in to find out. Anyway, until next time, peace out.